Good morning, guys. I'm glad that you are here, for those three of you who are here on time. If you are seeing this videotape, then there's a very good chance that I have been abducted by the Methodist Church and I'm being held in a basement with some very sweet Wesleyan people at this point. Now, if you're seeing this, then either one, I'm sick, which I kind of feel it coming on, or two, I ended up recording it and liking it and being like, well, I'm not going to waste that. In any case, I'm glad that you can see me this morning, because I say that because you may not, actually, I may not see you. But don't act up, because I have people in place. So we are on John 10. So last week we went backwards a little bit, forwards a little bit. We covered a lot of the story of Christ going to the cross, and of course, for Easter, and we covered the Easter story. So now we're jumping back to where we were before, and we're back in John 10. So let's start reading there. Verse 10. Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep gate or the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. Now immediately he's setting these guys on edge, which he liked to do. So the Pharisees, they take hit after hit. But anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him, because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. So Jesus spoke in parables, and at one point he said something that was interesting. He actually said, I speak in parables so some people won't understand. It's so confusing, because parables help us understand, but for some reason these people were so blind that Jesus spoke in plain language in these stories so that they would they should get it, but they didn't, and so they were very much accountable for what they believed. So he starts out by saying, anyone that doesn't come into the sheep pen through the gate is a robber or a thief, or a wild animal that is preying on the sheep. And so to understand what that means, I think we have to go back and look at what that actually looks like. So what I want to do here is I want to show you a clip of some shepherds actually with sheep in the sheep gate. And the guy will talk a little bit about what a sheep gate was, the importance of that, and he'll give you a little insight into the picture that's going on here with Jesus. So what is a sheep gate? What is he talking about? Climbing the wall. Let's take a look at this video clip, and I think it'll give you an idea.
So how do people go to heaven? Well, in answering this very important question, Jesus spoke figuratively about one of these, a sheep pen. So a sheep pen is made up of these stone walls that come together and form a narrow opening. So before evening sets in, the shepherd gets his flock into the protection of a sheep pen, and then he himself serves as the gate to a sheep by sitting or laying in this narrow opening so that nothing can get in and nothing can get out without going through the shepherd.
So we see that in this clip, it's really cool because you actually see a shepherd sitting in the gate to keep the sheep safe. So there's these walls, the sheep come in and they're safe. And if anybody grabs a sheep that's not the shepherd, that's not the person in the doorway, that person is climbing over. Maybe he is trying to catch the shepherd asleep or something, and he's going to grab a sheep or two. And so if you come by another means, you're not supposed to be in there. These aren't your sheep. Now, keep in mind that we are the sheep in most of the stories. So he calls the Pharisees thieves and robbers. You are coming in and talking to my people and leading them away from me when I sent my son into the world, and you are leading them away. You are stealing the sheep away from me, or you're trying to. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls them out and leads them. When he has brought, when he has brought out all of his own, he goes on ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They won't follow a stranger. So what does that look like? I don't know that we, if you have pets, maybe you've seen this where your pet really doesn't respond to noise or the TV, but you say their name or you open a can of Purina and that animal is all over it. And so sheep are very responsive. They are cared for deeply by the shepherds, and there's a bond that forms. I remember being at this farm in Virginia, and this little sheep would follow this guy that was giving me the tour the whole time, and he said that he was the mom, basically, that he had adopted him. The mother was sick, and the little sheep just bonded, the little lamb just bonded to this guy and followed him. It was really sweet. But what about the voice? Do they actually respond to the voice? And I think you'll see that they do. It's fascinating. So watch these people as they attempt to call the sheep that are not their own, and then the guy whose sheep it is actually calls them out. So let's see what that looks like.
One more time.
Oh, one is.
Louder!
Tika, 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 tika. Tika, 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 tika. Tika, tika. Tika, 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 tika.
Look at them, look at them.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
They are coming. Oh my God. Woo! Oh my God. I can't believe it. Oh my God. This is
Okay, so we see that sheep actually do respond to voices, to the voice of the shepherd, not to other people's voices. I think one person maybe got one look. It reminded me of the game that we used to play called Hey Cow. You roll your window down as you're going past a pasture, somebody yells, "Hey cow," as loud as you can, and you get points for every cow that turns. And just because there's a noise, just because there's something out of the ordinary, the cow's going to look.
Hey cow! Hey cow! Hey cow!
Oh, I got one.
I did this one time driving with my sister Pam, and I yelled out the window as a horse, and she's like, "Look, say it to this horse up here." So I yelled, "Hey horse," and the horse lifted up his head and looked at us like it was somebody he knew, and my sister nearly wrecked from laughing. It was great. So so we see that the sheep bond, and they know the voice, and so as the sheep of Jesus, we know his voice. We don't know the voice of the Pharisees. We don't follow the voice of people who try to develop their own religions, people who try to get to heaven on their own merit. We don't follow people who are not Christians, who are not following God. In fact, we sometimes follow people who follow Jesus, and that's similar. You'll see sheep do that. They'll kind of see everyone running and know, okay, this is the way I should go, and that's fine as well. But they actually hear the voice. Verse 7. And I said verse 10 up there up top. Sorry, that was starting at verse 1. My bad, that was chapter number. But what can I do? It's video. I could correct it, but I'm not, because it's like I'm there, making mistakes. Therefore Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal, to kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Now, we're getting, and one of the questions you're going to have is some of these characters in the story. We're getting all these characters lined up here. And thieves and robbers could be the Pharisees in the story. Of course, the gatekeeper is Jesus. We are the sheep. And then he says, the thief, in verse 10, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, and that is Satan's work. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. So Satan is looking who he can devour. He is like a wolf in the sheep's pasture, looking to grab one of us and destroy us. And Jesus is the way, is the only gate to that to that land where we can actually spend eternity with God. So Satan tries to block it. Jesus says, I am the way. Whoever enters through me will be saved. And it reminds me of the verse where Jesus said, I am the way. Remember we talked about Thomas last week. How do we know the way? How do we know the way to heaven? He's like, I'm going, you follow me. How do we know the way? And Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. And so he's showing them here that this is still the truth, that he is the gate, the only way, and his voice is the only voice that will get you a relationship with God the Father. In verse 11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. We talked about how Jesus hinted and told the disciples over and over that he was going to die, that he would die. And this is another one of those, very clear. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. So here we are as God's people, as God's sheep, and in Jesus' day, this was the people, especially the people of Jerusalem, or Israel. So the Jewish people are there, and Satan comes to snatch them up with lies and tries to destroy their lives. And what do the people, the Pharisees, the religious leaders do? They act like hired hands. They act like people who have no stake in the game at all. Like, God has called you to do something. Do it regardless. But no, they're acting like, well, if it gets too dangerous, I'm just making a wage here. I'm out. And so they're like the hired hands. So another character in the story is the hired hands. And that, I believe, is also the religious leaders who would cut and run as soon as things got tough. And it really wasn't their sheep. They were tending for Christ. And so when he came on the scene, they should have been grateful for that. Verse 14, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Remember the video we saw. just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, and that is close. And I lay my life down for the sheep. Again, a hint, very clear. I lay my life down for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. One of the things Jesus did when he came was to say, not just Israel, we're opening up. God is calling people from all the nations. Now, keep in mind, in the Old Testament, a person could choose to join the Jewish faith. Even though they weren't born a Jew, they weren't born into Israel, they could come into the faith, even then. But Jesus said, I'm going outside and I'm calling the Gentiles. I'm calling the people who are not Jewish to me. And I must bring them also. That is good news for you and me, that he is bringing us also. They too were like the fainting sheep, the fainting goats. Were like the fainting. Now the goats, really, that's a different story. We don't want to get into the end times there, the judgment and stuff. So strike that. We're not goats. But if you have time to look up fainting goats, it's well worth it. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. So the Jewish people, the Gentiles, one shepherd, one voice, they are one. So two, the Jews and the Gentiles would become one with the same shepherd, Jesus, the same flock. That is also good news for us. God's people were so special to him in the Old Testament, and God is saying, you are also my people. And that is awesome. So verse 15, just as the Father knows me, I know the Father. It's that close. I lay my life down for the sheep. I have other sheep, that's us. They will listen to my voice, and there'll be one flock, one shepherd. Verse 17, the reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life. Again, telling them, I'm going to lay down my life. If you didn't hear it, you weren't listening. Remember, a lot of times he will say, those who have ears to hear, let them listen, let them hear. And basically saying, look, guys, you can understand this if you just pay attention. The reason my Father loves me is I lay down my life only to take it up again. So another hint as to the resurrection happening. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. Remember last week we talked about how it was always God's plan, that he was before Pilate and said, you know, and Pilate said, I can take your life. And he says, no, you can't. The only authority you have is given to you from above. Jesus came specifically to die for us. It was his plan. So no one takes it from me. I lay it down on my own accord. Just think about that. And that some of you saw the clips from the Passion of the Christ. He did that willingly, knowing what he was walking into, because he loves us and he wants to bring us into the fold of sheep and make us his. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. So God the Father is giving him the right, the privilege, the honor of laying down his life and then rising up again through the power that exists in him, because God gave him that ability. The Jews who heard these words were again divided. Now again, not all the Jews were scattering. Remember, Jesus was a Jew. Many of his followers were Jews. And so they were divided. Many of them said, he is demon-possessed and raving mad. Why listen to him? Keep in mind the Jesus that we've talked about, and imagine him being called demon-possessed and raving mad. Can you imagine what the norm must have been back then? If Jesus, who did all these things, was demon-possessed and raving mad, then I can't imagine what kind of neighbors these people had. But others, and I pray this is you, but others said, these are not the sayings of a man possessed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? And that's one of the things we've been talking about on Sunday nights, and we're going to keep talking about, is how to share your faith with someone, lead someone to Christ. And it's a good question to ask. Is this man, if this man wasn't who he said he was, he's a liar. Does he seem like a liar? Does he seem like a demon-possessed man? Can somebody who is playing a game, convince all these people that he came back to life, convince all these people he raised someone from the dead, fed 5,000 people. That must have been some trick. Turned water to wine, raised Lazarus after he was stinking dead. Can a demon-possessed person do that? Can a madman do that? Can someone who is not God's son do that? No, cannot. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. He's the good shepherd. We are his sheep. There are people who would love to steal us away. Satan himself is like the wolf, would love to steal us away and destroy us. But we need to listen to God's voice. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And that Word was Jesus. And so his is the voice we listen to. Most clearly, most explicitly, we listen to his Word and listen to him speak through his Word in the Bible. And that's why we meet here on Sunday mornings and study, because we want to know the Good Shepherd, because he loves us so much. And we're just sheep, and we need him. We need his protection. We need to be in those walls. So if you guys would take this now, and you guys can decide how to break up here. If you want to stay as a group, you can stay as a group. If you want to break up, then whoever is leading today, if I am not there, you can decide. If I am there, look to me, because I will have made a decision.